The average price of a home in British Columbia just hit a brand new all-time high. We're going to tell you what that number is and what's sustaining this upward pressure in prices. Hey, and welcome back to the Vancouver Life Weekly YouTube update. As we just mentioned, home prices in BC continue to increase month over month, and we just hit an all-time high price. Ryan, what is that number?
$845,169. It is an all-time high.
So year over year, I think we saw BC do about 16%, very much in line with the national average. And there's a couple regions that are really kind of outperforming others. Year over year, the Kootenay region led the way with 28.5% appreciation rate.
That's incredible.
Right?
I don't know if I would have ever seen that. I don't know if I could have predicted that.
I think people are looking to Southeast BC for those vacation properties, right? I think that area's had fairly low demand, and it went from 0 to 100 demand based on people wanting to have interprovincial vacation travel destinations. So they were just fiercely bought up over the last year, thanks to the coronavirus.
It's incredible. I mean, you don't have to look much further too. The Fraser Valley is doing some incredible numbers too. I mean, we're seeing upwards of 25.8%, call it 26% in the Fraser Valley. That is, it's 30 minutes from where we're currently living. It's
you must drive fast.
Well, if I'm not driving, yes, fair enough. I do drive fast.
But yeah, I mean, Fraser Valley, as we kind of touched on throughout the year, there was that mass exodus out of downtown cores, out of the more dense areas to, let's call it, cheaper pastures in a sense, right? Because obviously, historically, the Fraser Valley had a more accessible price point. So people sold their condos, their one beds, and they were buying into 2-3 bedroom townhouses for comparable prices in the valley. And that demand clearly created this appreciation rate of, like Brian said, almost 26%.
Yeah, and it's not just price point too. It's also you get so much more for your money, right? And we've been preaching this for some time now, but when you do look at the fact that your $700,000 condo is a 3-bedroom townhome in the Fraser Valley, it's hard to compete with that when you're looking for space, when you're looking to get into a less dense area, right? We'll see if these numbers maintain. I have a bit of a hunch that as we continue to recover and as the marketplace continues to kick into high gear here, you're going to see some of those numbers, I think, start to pop up closer to Vancouver as some of the inventory in the downtown core, for example, starts to get eaten into. I don't know if we'll necessarily see price jumps anywhere near that effect, but we are certainly going to start to see some absorption rates.
I think let's have a look at February so far. So we're talking just GVRD right now. We are going to hit the second highest sales volume ever recorded for the month of February in GVRD, second to only, you guessed it, 2016. But of course, this is also being driven, or also very important to note, that the inventory is the second lowest of all time, second only to 2015.
Wow. Dan, I mean, how many new properties came on your list this week? Almost. I mean, anything exciting pop up?
How many new properties hit the market this week?
No, I mean in terms of properties that are, being sought after by your clients. To me,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I've got clients reaching out. It's a supply issue. They're saying, hey, in the last few months, you were sending me, upwards of 10 or 12 listings in an email, and now I'm getting 2 or 3. And it's like, well,
yeah, that's just it. You're dead on. And yeah, so essentially what Ryan's talking about here is every week our clients have sort of a filtered search parameter, and we send out the properties that match that and see if one of those are the right home for them. Let's say on average, people are getting 5-6 homes a week. This week, I would say that's one if they're lucky. There is just very limited product coming online right now.
Yeah, and I have clients much like you, Dan, that are reaching out being like, hey, you going to send some property this week? And it's like, well, there's nothing that really is falling into your criteria right now. Everything else has kind of moved on, right? Or changing price points or something to that effect anyhow. I mean, you look at the median price, we're up $40,000 from last month.
Yeah, median price is up $40,000 in 1 month, and we're going to basically be an all-time high for the median price here for GVRD at $850,000. That beats out the
Wow.
previous record of 845,000 back in October of last year. So it's like another month, another record. I mean, this is just perpetuating new high prices, new levels of FOMO. I mean, it's just insane out there.
Well, and you know, I don't doubt that, you know, the average consumer is probably wondering what is driving all of this, right? And you know, Dan and I are reaching out to as many people as we know that are in different marketplaces, in, you know, wealth managers, all that kind of stuff. And it's not just happening in the real estate market. It's happening in a global marketplace. We're seeing, you know, huge swings in the stock market. We're seeing cryptocurrencies that are flying. We're seeing huge amounts of cash that's being printed. Government's trying to raise the inflation rate. And there's tremendous amounts of money sitting on the sidelines still to this day, probably more than there ever was in, you know, call it recent history. And a lot of this money sitting on the sideline is going to find its way into real estate um, over the next, you know, 12 to 18 months, if not longer. You
Yeah,
know,
I think it's very few people really understand what's happening with the quantitative easing and the fact that it is elevating asset prices. And I think as more people become educated to that fact, more of this money that is on the sidelines, as you mentioned, Ryan, will be entering the marketplace.
mhm.
It's going to continue to sustain and I think accentuate the rate of appreciation that we are seeing. You know, like what did we see just last month? Like 0.9%, almost a full percent
That's
in
right. Yeah.
appreciation here. You know, Canada's seeing this happen as well as a whole, right? We've got what the potential or the trajectory rather of about a 20% MLS HPI price index or HPI price year over year by about summer. We're on track for 20% year over year for Canada as a whole.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I
I
mean
mean, that's
it's
and
a
that's coming out
50-year
from
high.
when we're looking, you know, from policy um, implementers, people who are creating housing policy, saying, you know, we don't see a bubble, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, or we don't think it's frothy, and we're out here kind of going, well, I get that you know, there's a ton of cash sitting on the sidelines, and people are making a lot of money in both the stock markets and, like I said, cryptocurrency. But they're when they make those profits, they're going to move that money out of those markets and into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So don't think that, you know, because you're seeing tremendous gains in one market, you're not going to see it in another. It's coming. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, they're printing. The government is printing a tremendous amount of cash right now, and that is creating its own inflationary bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to say that, you know, well, we're seeing bubbles in cryptocurrency and in the stock market, but we're not seeing it in the real estate market is just short-sighted, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean the official data has just come out, and it says Canada's inflation rate year over year is 1%. 1%. I mean, we're seeing housing at 16 to 20%, and you know, anyone who's trying to buy a house right now, I mean, even just trying to buy food right now, can you ask anyone on the streets and say, "Hey, does it feel like prices are up only 1% from last year?"
Yeah,
No, it just
doesn't
it does, yeah, it
doesn't feel
doesn't
like
seem
it.
a measurable, an accurate measure of true inflation.
Well, and from some of our sources, just touching on your quantitative easing note there, globally speaking, here we are seeing, wasn't it somewhere to the tune of $50 billion a week is being spent in global stimulus packages around the world right now.
Yeah,
So
sounds about right.
it's some tremendous amounts of liquidity and money that's being printed and going into the economy right now. Um, and as far as I'm concerned, and from the people we've been speaking to, the governments really have no interest in kind of relenting on that position right now. They want to see, you know, inflationary rates above 2%. And if this is what 1% gets us, well, what does 2% look like? Or, you know, 2.5%. Well,
Right?
that's their target, right? So
Yeah, that's
as far as I'm concerned, I think you're going to see a lot more of the same, and the prices are going to continue to go, especially with all the cash sitting on the sidelines.
yeah, and think about this inventory issue as well, right? And it's not that inventory just decided to go or get eaten up over the coronavirus sort of period of time. Inventory has been dropping drastically in Canada since about 2015, and then it really
Yeah.
took off in 2019. I mean,
Yeah.
we're at 30-year lows right now in national inventory, and so we're talking about a 6-month decline here, or sorry, 6-year
Mhm.
decline in inventory. So it's not like this is just kind of
It's
propped
not
up out of
new.
nowhere. It's been trending this way for 6 years straight.
Well, we talked about but before the pandemic, the rage was all there's not enough housing, not enough housing, not enough housing. And that issue didn't go away. It just got put on pause while we dealt with the coronavirus. And now that it's getting dealt with, these issues are coming back, right? I mean, I think, we were looking at numbers this morning. In 2015, nationally speaking, wasn't there 220,000 available properties or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 years later, we are below 100,000.
Yeah, yeah, less than half. I mean, half of that inventory has
Like,
been eaten up in 6 years.
yeah,
And
and
of course,
and
and yeah, we should put up maybe a copy of that graph, because I mean, it just goes like this. It's just
yeah,
down.
it doesn't taper off. It
That's it.
drops off, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't a deferral cliff. There was a supply cliff.
Yeah, that's very true. The exact opposite.
Yeah.
I think a couple things we've noticed a bit anecdotally here, but because we've been focused on Albion in the last couple of weeks here with clients shopping and selling in that neighborhood,
Just crazy.
in the last 30 days in Albion, so we're talking about Maple Ridge, and we are talking about detached homes, 100% of the homes in Albion sold over asking price, an average of 13% over asking price. And these homes are $1 million now. So the average home, the average sale is going for about 130 over asking price right now.
Dan,
And
can you ballpark 2 years ago what homes were moving for out there?
well, for sure, because one of these clients that's looking to do a move up, we bought 2 years ago in
Mm-hmm.
Albion. The home sat on the market for about 45 days before we bought it, and we were able to negotiate 5% below the asking price.
He's happy about that now.
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like we touched on that earlier property. People are making $100,000 a year on a detached home in Albion over the
So
last 5-6 years.
you're looking at 5% reduction 2 years ago to 13% over 2 years later,
Mm-hmm.
a swing of 18% in 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. This tremendous amount of growth.
I think we came across a listing in Chilliwack, which it had some realtor comments, which I think is a real sort of State of the Union comment.
Mm.
It literally said in the comments, and this is information that's visible to licensed real estate agents. It said the showings start on February the 14th, and then offers are going to be presented by 7 p.m. on the same day, on February 14th. You
Happy
literally
Valentine's
had, on Valentine's Day, like,
Yeah.
some people don't have other plans. So yeah, the home hit the market. You could see it on one day, and then offers had to be submitted that same day.
Yeah,
That's
at that point, you're going to look at the home and you're pulling your client out afterwards and being like, okay, I brought the contract. Do you want to write on it? I mean, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
2 years ago, you had, like you said, 45 days on market. The average person would have at least 24, 48, even 72 hours to maybe think about whether or not they wanted to write an offer on a home, which at $1 million is, I think, quite reasonable.
Yeah.
But we're just not in a marketplace where we get those luxuries anymore.
So I think to wrap this one up, as we discussed, we think the policymakers will be coming in at some point to suppress this rate of appreciation. There are rumblings right now, again, in Toronto is where it's starting, and they're talking about increasing the land transfer tax, right? We know it's going to be a tax of some sort, or probably a few of them. We saw British Columbia do this just last year or 2 years ago, increasing the property transfer tax, and Toronto's going to do it again, right? I think the governments are going to say, look, we've elevated your equity and your appreciation rates and your housing values, so we're going to take a little bit back by taxing that ourselves.
And conversely, and just because I'm not a proponent of more tax, I think it's a harmful long-term play on our housing market, because it really doesn't address the issue. The issues are supply, fundamental supply. We have a systemic supply issue in our country. And until politicians start waking up and realizing that it's taking way too long to build property, and that property, I mean, there was an article in the Globe and Mail a couple days ago about how bogged down Vancouver is when it comes to permit applications. I mean, this story's been going on for 10 years, and just nobody does anything about it. Instead, we just throw tax at it. It's
Mhm.
sorry, it's illogical. It's in the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over and over
Yeah.
again, expecting a different result.
Yeah,
You're just not
there's
going to get one.
literally go to City Hall any day of the week. You will see a lineup of people that are trying to build rental housing and more housing in Vancouver, and they're basically being shot down
Yeah,
daily.
we've
So
brought land assemblies. God, we could go on forever, but the city has a problem, and this is a lot to do with them. Anyway,
fantastic. Okay, well, that's this week's episode. Lots of moving pieces, as there is every week in Vancouver real estate. Thank you guys so much for watching. We are looking to grow this channel. Please,
yes,
if you like what you're hearing, if you want to hear more of this, please subscribe to the channel. And please, of course, visit our website, thevancouverlife.com, for more detailed information and a bunch of listings as well. Maybe the right one
awesome.
for you.
Sounds good, guys. See you next week.